All right. So, welcome. Happy almost New Year. Well, Happy New Year to maybe some of you watching around the world that are in the more advanced time zones. Tell me in the chat how 2025 is treating you if you are in those time zones. I'm very interested to hear if we have something to look forward to or if 2025 is not something we want to actually experience. With that said, I'm Nick from Talking Cardboard, and here in front of me I have the board game Purple Haze. This is something that a game that I recently received in the mail. I actually backed this on Kickstarter a couple years ago, and finally received it. It's published by Phalanx Games, and this is a Vietnam themed adventure war game. It might even be considered more of like an adventure game than it is a war game because there is a tactical combat element to the game that we will probably get to, I assume, maybe in this playthrough, depending on how it goes. But there's a lot of paragraph reading, and it really plays out more of like a more of an adventure game, I guess, for lack of better words. So that's what it convinced me that it was something I wanted to back. Also, it's fully co-op and can be played then solo, as I am doing right now. I meant to move these boards a little bit forward before I started, and I forgot to do that. So you can just a quick explanation of what everything on the table is. We have the kind of high level area map of what's called the northern area of operations of Vietnam. I don't know how abstracted this map is. It's supposed to be at least similar to the types of grid maps that were used. I don't know if it's actually geographically accurate or not. And this is where you're moving your squad token around, which I haven't figured out yet where we start the board, but this is I'll put it over here. This is the squad token that's used. Now, this I think was a Kickstarter exclusive. So if you get this game via retail, you might not get this cool looking 3D token, although it's literally just a soldier. So you could go back to your childhood toy bin and probably find something similar to this. So with that said, this is then the kind of high level map where you're moving your squad around square by square, and then you will be encountering these various tokens. The book tokens represent event events that you'll read from this mission booklet that exists for every single mission. So every mission has its own booklet that contains a bunch of paragraphs you'll be reading. And then we have, I believe this token represents our base, which is, I believe, what the objective of this particular mission is to get to return to the base. Yeah. So we're trying to return here in this mission. But that's what this token represents. And then you have a token that stands for EAZ, which I learned from this game. That stands for Enemy Activity Zone. So this is an area that's going to increase the chance that there could be a combat, which then takes us to this board. And on this board, you'll be laying all these. You'll be laying out your forces via these tokens, which abstractly represent your squad of 6 soldiers, and the enemy then. So your side's actually it's divided in halves. The U.S. side's this half, the Vietnam side's the top half, and these tokens then are the enemy tokens that will be populating the board and represent then the enemy forces. And then you will do a combat round. What's unique about the combat in this game is it's always one round, whether you eliminate all the enemies or not. And one round meaning every soldier you have only gets to take one turn, basically shoot once, for simplicity's sake. And that, I understand, is to kind of streamline gameplay. But I'm also saying that to reiterate the point I made earlier, that this is this game isn't so much a war game as it is a adventure game. So with that said, in terms of other things I want to point out, we have our squad of soldiers here, and each comes equipped with, so each in this game there's actually a bunch of different identities or marines that you can play as, and each has their own unique stats to make them a little different from one another, to kind of also increase the replayability of the game. And then with every marine comes a specialization. So you're always going to be playing every mission with all 6 specializations, which include the engineer, a scout, infantryman, radio operator, squad leader, and a corpsman. And something to also say about this game is it actually also is very much like an RPG. So every Marine has 5 attributes for different types of tests that you will be conducting throughout a mission, which include, of course, I don't have the right. Oh, I thought I had. I swear there was a very nice overview of what all the different traits are in the game. I think it's survivability. There's a charisma, I think, is that one. Intelligence, toughness maybe is the yin yang symbol, and then survivability and perception. So as you're reading the paragraphs from this mission booklet, you're going to have trait checks, much like an RPG game, and you either pass or fail them and deal with the results. So that adds then kind of this, unique aspect to a war game that you wouldn't normally have. Again, another reason why I really wanted to back this game when it was announced on Kickstarter. So with that said, I should be ready to go here. And one thing that I'm definitely want to start by saying I'm not an expert on how to play this game. This is really my first time running through a mission, so I will apologize in advance for any long pauses as I'm trying to understand what to do, but bear with me on that, and we'll see how helpful these there's a bunch of different reference sheets to help with gameplay, and they actually do seem pretty thorough in terms of letting me just use these and not have to reference the rulebook hopefully too much. But also, like an RPG, basically you're moving around this big map, and those are called squad actions, and you continue to do these squad actions until finally you get into a combat, and then you resolve the combat. Again, much like an RPG where you're maybe moving around some sort of map, and then all of a sudden you're fighting, and then you kind of transition into a different situation altogether. And in this game, you transition to this combat board. I think I touched on all the main things. There's this track. So this measures the time essentially, and in hours and then minutes. And then you also have a stamina track, which represents abstractly the stamina of your squad, how exhausted they are. And then you have what's called the threat track, which abstractly simulates how much awareness the Vietnamese may have of your location. So you start in green, meaning you're not in a lot of threat. There's not a strong chance that you're going to be fighting anyone anytime soon. And then as you progress through the mission, that's going to increasing the chance that you'll do something, and then that's going to set off a combat. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and and there will be spoilers, so keep that in mind. I'm not going to not read all the paragraphs for the mission. So if you really would rather not hear all that, then I understand if you would rather not watch this playthrough. But hopefully, since this is just the first mission, you're okay doing that. And I've heard that the first mission, you're not able to do everything in any mission on the first try. Like you can play the same mission multiple times and get a completely different experience, and resolve things that you didn't get to resolve the first time you tried a mission. So with that said, this first mission is called Crash, and it says September 15, 1967. Huey down, you're about halfway to the landing zone when you got hit by that enemy fire. The gunner fell out. The pilot's dead. As your bird spun to the ground, you think you saw the other Huey get hit too, but you can't be sure. You're alive, at least for now. You look around at your squad, a bunch of cherry Marines. In country, no more than a week. You gotta move. And I'm also trying to not say some of these swear words, by the way, so if I'm skipping if it sounds like I'm skipping over things, that's why. Your radio got busted up in the crash. The only way out is by foot. Moving fast makes you easier to track, but you got no choice. If you're still out in the boonies come nightfall, the place is going to be crawling with the VC. You hope to find out what happened to the other Huey, but it's not the priority. Right now, your squad is what matters. So, you set up the map. It gives then it goes into detail of how to set up this mission, which I've already done. It provides a lot of detail on how to set up your squad, which normally you do have a little bit of freedom and customization opportunity. This first mission, I think, purposely makes it a little more straightforward, which I'm fine with. And then it says primary objective, return to the base, again, which is that token. And then it tells you to, or then that ends the mission. And then there's also a secondary mission objective, which says find and investigate the crash site of the other Huey to find out what happened to its crew and passengers. And then it says special rules. During the mission, the fire, support, and evac. Without a radio, your radio operator cannot use his fire support skill, and you cannot take the evac or evacuation action. So normally in the game, there's an evacuation action, which allows you to either end a mission earlier or send off a wounded or KIA soldier. But this specific mission says you're not allowed to do that because the radio operator doesn't have a radio on him because of the plane crash. So he's not able to call in an evac, and he's also not able to use this fire support card, which otherwise normally is a pretty powerful ability for the radio operator because it essentially lets you call in an artillery or airstrike, and those are pretty powerful attacks that you have access to with that radio operator. Okay, so then after all that introduction, it says I thought it said somewhere what to. Oh yeah, for the starting point, it says read paragraph 00. Okay, you need to find out where the heck you are and how to get back to base. You call your scout over and ask him to determine your position as best as he can. You can't sit still in Indian country, but being accurate could ultimately save time and lives. So there's, I didn't specifically say this yet, but in the campaign book, there's going to be a lot of these, or mission booklets, there's going to be a lot of these decisions you have to make that are going to impact how this mission plays out. And again, it goes back to what I was saying about the replayability of these missions, that you might have a completely different experience depending on what decision option you take for these types of paragraph checks. So one option is ask the scout to quickly provide a map reference. And then the other option is give the scout some time to determine where you are. And it says for that, I need to give plus 15 minutes, which is this track. So I'd have to move that up 15 to the 15-minute mark. And I'm going to give him the 15 minutes. So the scout, by the way, is this Marine named Geek J.N. Raiden. And I'm going to give him the 15 minutes that he needs to better figure out where we are. So I'm going to move up the time track 15 minutes to illustrate that. So it says select the scout and test intelligence difficulty 3 using the difficulty modifier outlined below. So this is a good example of how skill checks work in this game. So if I did A, there's no modifier. I chose the other option. And it says for B, reduce the difficulty of the test to difficulty 2. So by giving him those 15 minutes of time, the difficulty of this intelligence trait check is not a start, which makes sense. So then you roll the threat die, then roll the threat die, and update the threat tracker if green, yellow, or red. Okay, so skill checks. In this game, you always have, when you're doing a trait skill check, you get 3 of these purple dice to start. And then you add what are white or grayish dice based on the intelligence of based on the trait value of the Marine that's taking this check. So in the case of the scout here, I'll just try to show this. His intelligence, which is this symbol, is a 4, so that means I get 4 of these dice. Now, some skills, some of these Marines have abilities which up their... Oh, it's New Year's in Eastern Coast. I have the TV on the background. So for those of you on Eastern Time Zone, Happy New Year. As I said at the start of this, hopefully let me know in the chat how 2025 is. Since you're there now, because I'm in Central Time Zone, so I'm an hour behind. All right, so anyway, back to the skill check. Some of these Marines are gonna maybe have modifiers for certain types of skill checks and that sort of thing, but in the case of this scout here, it just says his is more related to I think combat is what it's called. I'm not going to bother trying to figure it out. Oh, wait. Sorry. The Marines will have abilities that might affect trait checks, but also each of the specializations themselves have different abilities, which also affect potentially trait checks. So he has 2. One says observation. Add one of these white dice when taking a perception test, but this is an intelligence test, so in this case it doesn't matter. And then also he has something called pathfinding. Before you roll a threat die, if you march into one of these trains, add 30 minutes and subtract 2 stamina. So just basically helps, it's called pathfinding. Basically it's making it's causing less stamina to move, which is a good thing. Anyway, so we're not changing our dice based on everything that I just said, and we're going to roll all these together, and we're looking for matches between the gray die with the purple die, and also within the gray die themselves. It's a very difficult thing to explain. I'll just show it to you and not bother trying to explain it because the rulebook tries to explain it and I don't feel like it did a very good job until I watched a video on Board Game Geek from someone who did just examples after example after example of the die roll, and then I finally understood how these work. So I'm looking for 2 successes, by the way. So I have 2 purple 6s. Okay, so this worked out. So I have 2 purple 6s. On purples, 99% sure. Matching purples unfortunately have 0 value. So these 2 6s don't actually count as a success. However, I also have 2 3s, and each of these white or gray 3s count then as 1 success because they each match with one of the purple dice. The purple dice are called focus dice, by the way. The white dice are called strike dice, but I don't expect you to remember that. So unfortunately, these 6s didn't even help me, even though they matched, because of just how the system works for the dice in this game. But that's okay because I got the 2 successes I needed, and I'm glad then I gave the scout the time he needed, because if I didn't do that, I would have otherwise failed this skill check. So now I go back to the mission booklet to see what happens, and it says select the scout test, blah blah blah, and then it says place a. Oh, did I? Maybe I used the wrong marker for this guy, but it says place a enemy activity marker. Oh wait, sorry, this might be a different type of marker. Place one of these tokens, and I got to dang it. There's an iconography chart somewhere. Squad's position. Oh, okay. This so if you get the retail version of the game, this is the squad, what the squad position token marker would be instead of this giant 3D miniature of a soldier or marine. So that's what I'm placing now. So it says then success, and it gives, depending on the test I just did, there's different coordinates. So for a success, it says 90 north, 87 east. So you get to feel like a genuine map cartographer person. So 90 north, because this is north, and 87 east, so here. So then that's where I'm supposed to put the mini because of the test I just did. If I hadn't been successful, then it says 91 north, 86 east, 91 north, 80. So it would have been back here. So just one diagonal back. So knowing that and obviously that's not as good because we were trying to get here. So obviously being one kind of diagonal back wouldn't be a good thing. And then it says begin the mission. Okay. So now we do what's called a squad action. And there's 3 squad actions called March, Bivouac. I should Google how to actually say that word. Because I don't know how to say that word. And I feel dumb not knowing how to say that word. Bivouac. I don't know. Bivouac. It's basically make a camp. And then evac. Now, again, if you were listening earlier, I said that, in fact, I can't actually do the evac action because we don't have a radio operator with a working radio. And that means I instead need to choose one of the other ones, but which is fine because we're hopefully not going to have to worry about evacing anyway. So the obvious one is marching, and following, I'll just kind of show you here. It really lays out what you're supposed to do pretty clearly. So first, it allows us to change the point man. Right now, the point man is that scout that determine our position, and I want to keep him as the lead, as the point man, because he's smart and got good perception. All right, now it says move squad to an adjacent space. Okay, so I could go, obviously then, I want to work my way down here, and there's this enemy activity zone. I could move right into that and see what happens. I don't know if I really care to do that though, because I kind of am just thinking, I'm just going to go for this event and see what that tells me. So that to do that, I'm just going to go here. So I'm going to go 1 there. So then it says, the next thing on the chart here says time, adjust the time track. So we look at the terrain. I moved into mountainous. Yeah, I think it's like called mountain terrain. And that says then it's +1 hour of time. So then we would shift the hour marker up 1 to denote that. And then the bottom so that's the top number. The bottom number says -4. That denotes how much stamina it's going to take us. And you don't want to get down to 0 stamina, otherwise you basically start taking damage until you get your stamina back. But it is what it is, so we're going to have to move this down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm at 8 stamina. Okay, so then checking here, we did the time. I don't know if I missed on other penalties. I don't think we have other penalties. I don't really want to spend too much time figuring that part out right now. I wish it just listed off the penalties here. Stamina, again, terrain, we just take into account the terrain. And then threat says roll threat die and adjust the threat track. So we haven't really dealt with that yet, and I guess this is as good a time as any to address the threat track. So as I did mention earlier, we have this track that simulates basically how heated things are getting. As you get to the red, that means the enemy kind of knows you're in the area. And as you take an action, you're always rolling the threat die to kind of basically serve as a game clock to help push that threat track forward, so you're not just moving around aimlessly. So I'm going to roll the threat die now, and we will resolve this together. And in the case of this color that I rolled, gray, which is gray, it's no effect. So that's kind of a... Oh, wait. Oops. So the threat die itself didn't impact the threat track. However, because I moved to a space adjacent to this enemy activity zone, that automatically will add +1 to the track. Because I'm right by potentially where the enemies are, it's increasing the level of threat that I'm generating by moving near them, which I don't really have a choice, but that's what that is simulating, which I think is actually kind of a cool idea. So because I'm around this potential enemy, I still have to move the threat into the orange zone. And then so then it says if I moving to the event space, I would resolve an event, which I didn't. Then it says if it's moving to a non-event space, I resolve an encounter only if the threat die yellow or red. So the die itself was gray, but the track is now in yellow, and I feel compelled to do a quick check in the rulebook to clarify if I actually still don't have to do an event check. I'm 99% sure then I don't do an event check. Now, that does say, though, that the color will denote when there could be combat occurring. And I'm not immediately seeing that in the rulebook either. So I'm going to... Or a mission booklet, I should say. So I'm just going to assume that even though I'm in yellow, that also didn't mean anything from a combat starting perspective. So that's actually a full squad action. Very simple. At the end of the day, you just move and roll a die. Okay, so then it's basically new squad action time. And I think I'm going to do the exact same thing. Continue moving over 1. And again, I start with the time track, which moves up 1 hour. So I'm at 1300. And then I have to move down stamina, which goes down 4. So I'm only 4 left. And then I have to once again roll the threat die. Again, I did get a gray, but again, I moved into a space that's adjacent. Diagonal is considered adjacent to that enemy activity zone. So I still have to move up 1 on the threat track. Okay. That squad action is also complete. So we go again. I need to quickly understand if I can do another mountain movement, which will take up 4 more stamina. Without... I think it's... I'm not sure if it's once it goes past... Or... Like if I land right on the 0, because it's going to put me right on 0 if I do another move, because it's 4 stamina. Well, I shouldn't say that, because I could use the action of my scout here. It says pathfinding before you roll a threat die. Oh. Yeah, so I'm just going to do his ability, because I don't see why not. And... Well, some of these abilities have a little red square, which helps you under... I mean, it will say... Or no, it doesn't say this. But those are all once per round tests. And... The game gives you these little red cubes to help you then keep track if you've used the once per round or mission abilities. So it says before you roll a threat die. So I technically would have missed my opportunity window, but we'll say I did use this ability. I add another 30 minutes, so I do have to add 30 more minutes. But then subtract 2 to our stamina, so we're at 6. All right, so now I'm not going to worry about the 0 stamina thing right now. We'll just move into that spot. And again, it's an hour of time moving into mountain terrain. It's 4 stamina again. So we're at 2. I think we still roll the threat die. This is one thing that I'm actually not 100% certain of because... Yeah, okay. It still says roll. It does say... I mean, following the flow chart, it's a green. So green says... Oh, okay. Green's actually good. It's -1 threat. Which is ironic because we moved further away from that enemy activity zone. And since we moved into a space that's not adjacent to the enemy activity zone, we don't have to worry about the +1 to the threat. So that's all nice. And then... But then since we're moving into event space, it says resolve the event. So to do that, we flip over the event, and it's in 3. So those actually, so each of these have a number underneath. And going back to the replayability, you don't actually know which event is where at the start of this mission because you randomly shuffle these events. The number, you flip them over. So you can't just redo the mission and I'm going to try this event this time because technically you're not supposed to know where each event is, which again adds to that replayability. So now we reference the mission booklet to see which paragraph event token 3 corresponds to. So if you're wondering, again, I mean, this is obviously spoilers, but the rule book or the mission booklet has event entry reference that 3 goes to paragraph 25. So then I'll do just that. And here we are, paragraph 25. So you really want to try to avoid reading the other stuff around the event as best as you can. But you've been... and again, maybe I shouldn't show these. I don't know if they've been need to be censored. You've been humping in this heat through the jungle for so long, you're starting to feel crazy. The jungle is an unfriendly environment, a never-ending wall of trees and thickets, bugs, and bloodsuckers. But gradually it thins out. You see a cluster of run-down shacks among the trees. You call your Marines to a halt. Something about this don't seem right, says a Marine behind you. So here we have decisions to make. A is move in to investigate. B is avoid the shacks and continue with your mission. And then C is circle around for a better look. Ugh. See, this is already like, each of these sound like viable options, right? Like, it's already making me want to play through again to see what the different options would be. I mean, obviously you can read them, but okay, so part of me wants to find the helicopter. Like, I know the primary is getting right here, but I do want to find this fallen helicopter, which eliminates B as an option, because that's the one that says just avoid and continue with your mission. So A is move in to investigate. C is circle around for a better look, which takes 15 minutes of time. And if we did that, that pushes us up a little bit on the time track, but it's 15 minutes. Like, I don't think that's gonna make or break the whole mission. So I'm gonna say, okay, we'll do that. So I reset that to 0, but that pushes us up an hour on the hour mark. Okay, so I did the 15-minute option, and then going back to this, well, I'll just keep the paragraph book in front of me. Okay, so circle around for a better look, see action below. And then it says, if C, the point man tests, difficulty 3 perception. So here we go again with the point man, who happens to be the scout once again. And let's just kind of go through. His perception is 4. Okay, this is good because his perception is 4, which first of all means we're getting to roll 4 of these, again, strike dice or gray dice, white dice, whatever you want to call them. But also, again, he has that ability that says observation. Add 1 of these dice when taking a perception test. This is a once per mission ability as well, but I'm definitely going to use it here because it's hard to know if we're going to get another opportunity to do this again. Which means now I have 4 dice. 5. And then we again will be rolling 3 of the purple dice, which are called focus dice. And I'm looking for 3 successes this time, though. So this is not easy by any means. And let's see. So I've heard lining purple dice kind of up by their values makes it easy. And then you just match the white accordingly. So that worked out because these dice don't match with any of the purple dice, so they're basically ignored. Thankfully, I have 1 strike dice that matches with my purple 2, like 1 focus. And then in this case, last time, if you remember, I rolled 2 matching purples that by themselves mean nothing. But this time, I also have a white or strike dice that matches the 2 matching purples. And each matching set or pair counts as a success. So that means I have 1, 2, 3 total successes, which is exactly what I needed. Once again, thank you, Geek JN Raiden, for helping me pass these tests. So then it says success. I mean, I don't know if failure is bad or not. I'm assuming it's bad. I'm not going to bother reading it and spoiling it. I'm just going to read the success paragraph, which says, your squad starts to move slowly around the perimeter of bamboo huts. Marines hold their pieces locked and loaded. Your point man raises his hand. All stop. He points to a wild pig moving between the abandoned hooches. You declaring war on Porky Pig, brother? A laugh ripples through the squad. Another voice stutters. That's all, folks. You're safe. No wild animal keeps company with humans out here in the boonies. So, then it says to go to paragraph 31, I guess. So we'll do that next. It says your squad moves in and spreads out to search the hooches. A couple minutes later, a Marine you posted to the perimeter hauls butt to your position. Someone's coming up behind us. VC, I can hear him all right. So, again, another decision to make. One, or A is pull back from the shacks to avoid combat. Or B is take cover and buckle up to fight. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm trying to avoid combat, I think. As much as combat sounds fun, it's also something that's not like... you know, that's how you lose your units. But let's just go for it, okay? So take cover and buckle up to fight. So if B, before combat optional, we can swap equipment, use a claymore mine. And I don't know if we want to use a claymore mine. Basically, I think the claymore mine will destroy everything in that first row, which, oh heck, why not? Okay, we'll use the claymore mine. Okay, so this is where this actually comes into play too. So threat level, this is going to determine initiative order. So if threat level is yellow, which it is, we only have initiative of 3. And then we do add a one of these markers, unfortunately. And then and a yellow special, which sorry that I'm this yellow guy becomes, yeah, okay. I think what the rules are saying is this guy goes here. So this is going to take a few minutes to actually set up, and I don't think it's worth cutting. So the 3 white pips represent abstract, like the cover that this unit has. It's called soft cover. So three of these are stacked underneath the unit to represent basically kind of 3 hit points of cover, essentially. And then they have a 5 health, which is what the red die symbol is representing. And the game gives you then die to track the health of the enemy. And then sorry, let me show this up close. And then you have a white and purple square, which represents then that this unit basically is adding a white and purple die to the die pool when the Vietnam side is attacking. So that's essentially what all the symbols mean, which is pretty straightforward in my opinion. Nothing overly complex, and that represents basically kind of a heavier armed VC unit. So in the back, they just get units from this stack of more regular, we'll call them units, and but there's still variety even within that stack of different difficulties. You can see that one has a lot of cover, and I'm making it's not as simple sometimes as it may seem in terms of how to completely. So basically, if I was in the red threat, there's another guy that would go here, but I'm not. So I ignore the guy that goes there, but it does look like there's supposed. I think that I still would place hard cover there, even though there's no guy there. And then there's a hard. This represents hard cover. It's better than soft cover essentially. Then here would normally actually be like or this would actually have. If I was in green, this would have been an easier VC unit, but because I was in the yellow, that actually upgraded it to this more heavily armed VC. If I was if I was at nighttime, the rules say there would have been a guy there, but we're not nighttime. We're still in the daytime, which is the upper half of the time track. I never mentioned that yet. You don't really want to fight at night, by the way. Okay, then we have. Oh, unfortunately, another one of these heavier armed units that's going to have several pips of 3 pips of cover, and they're in hard cover. So that guy's going to be difficult to deal with. And then we have a random guy here, which is 2. And they're in hardcover as well. Jeez. And then we have one of these guys standing out there, which I think just represents more of an elite VC. They provide 2 gray instead of just a single gray. And then another standard VC, only 1 pip, but in hard cover. Okay. So I think I've taken care of all of them as I'm supposed to. I then give them their health die as stated or shown. Okay. And now we get to put out our guys. So first we have some hard cover spots on our side. And something I do want to note that actually makes me kind of happy to see. In the mission booklet, there's going to be notes that the mission booklet will tell you to keep track of, which I think is a very RPG-esque, I've seen other games at least do that, where you took this action, so you write down as to remember that you did this because some future reading might say, well, if you did X, Y, or Z, you instead resolve this. Because what I was thinking, well, what's the point of a needless fight, right? In this game, you're just trying to survive the mission. Yeah, there is some value to trying to eliminate the VC, but it's not like it's not like you kill a VC and you get gold or anything like that. It's more realistic. You're trying to survive, basically, right? So, with that said, the mission booklet does tell me that because we took the option we take cover. We note that we chose take cover. I don't know what that might mean. It might be a bad thing. Maybe because we had this fight, a future mission will say, well, since you did take cover, you're now going to have to suffer these consequences. We don't know. But I'd like to think, because we're fighting the VC and we chose to fight them, it's going to benefit us in the future for some reason. We'll find that out. But anyway, I just want to point that out, that's a big part of this game too, is you're taking notes. I didn't really get into the notepad that the game comes with, where you're keeping track of these things. So I digress with that. But um, so now we get to place out our units however we want. The hardcover is definitely um, desirable terrain, and I'm blanking a little bit on how line of sight works. I'm probably gonna have to maybe pause this to read through the combat rules, so I'm not completely um, messing things up. But with that said, I'm not gonna think about this too much. So I'm just gonna put the machine gunner right out in front. And I think with our side, like the cover that these units get is based on their specialization um, cards. They have the number of pips in the upper right. So my understanding is the infantrymen will get 2 pips or 2 soft covers under their token, and I'll place him there. The other guy I'm going to place up in front. I get. Yeah, geez, there's a lot that I'm kind of blanking on right now. Um, but we'll just go ahead and put the. God, I don't want to. Kind of afraid to put out some of these guys. Or I'm trying to wonder who do I put out in the back, I guess is what I'm really trying to understand. See, what I'm trying to figure out is with the claymore, if the guy actually needs to be at the to place the claymore, if the engineer who actually has the claymore has to actually start in the very front row to do that. But I'm not. The rulebook says just use a claymore mine, and okay, I'm already doing what I said I didn't want to do. Use claymore. Oh well, I turned right to the page. This combat setup instructions may allow you to trigger the claymore mine if the engineer is carrying it. If you choose to use the claymore mine, roll 1d6. On a roll of 6, it fails to trigger. And then on any other roll, calculate the damage to the enemy. Okay. I want to also say that maybe we're able to do this because of the fact we were prepared for the VC because of our good perception check, so that is simulating that the engineer had, or not the engineer, sorry. Yeah, the engineer. The engineer had time to put the claymore mine out ahead of battle. So actually, he doesn't need to be on the front line for the claymore to work. So with all of that said, he does have a grenade launcher that only has a range up to 4 that could be useful. So I still don't want to put him at the very back, so I think I'm just going to put him here. And he gets only 1 pip of cover. Okay. And the scout, I don't know. He doesn't have. He just has an M16 and gets 2 soft covers. Because one guy's not gonna get hard cover. We have 6 total Marines, only 5 cover spots. So I just the flak jacket. Yeah, the flak jacket, which is the leader. Yeah, so I'm gonna put him. I guess the M16 still has a range of 4. But yeah, so I'm going to put the M16 guy there. The M14 rifle, that actually has a range of up to 5 spaces away. So I'm going to place him with 1 pip of cover back here. Then we have basically, yeah, I mean, this is going to be the corps man. well, he's our healer, so I don't know if you typically want to put your healer right in the front row, but it is what it is. And then we have the squad leader. Now, this is where, again, I'm not 100% sure how it works in terms of if it matters exactly where. I mean, he's not going to be able to in hardcover, so I don't know how much it matters at this point. I'll just put him here. I don't know if that's good or not. We'll find out. So all the units are set up. And then now we'll go to we'll do this Claymore resolution, because that clearly happens right away according to the rule book, which sounds fun. So let me read that one more time. So the Claymore, okay, so the Claymore Mine says we roll 8 strike. Man, that's a lot of die. I think it's saying 8 of the strike die. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 8 of the strike die. Then 2 of the yellow die, which is the first time we're actually using these yellow die, which are called the crit die, by the way. And then I'm not sure. Okay, I think that's. I think the purple 3 is just. So normally a combat roll test starts with just the 2, what are called purple die, or again focus die. Yeah, okay. So it's not addition. All right, but that's fine. So it's a lot of die. Oh my gosh, I can't even get them all in the cup here. And oh shoot! First, I got all excited. It does say that I need to roll that red d6, and if it's a 6, it's a dud. Man, that'd be so anticlimactic, but I imagine realistic. Okay, it's a 4, so was not a dud. So we'll put all of the die back into the cup. I just wanted to check to see if I had any bonuses. Okay. So let's see how things go. And we'll do the organization like I saw online, where you kind of line the first with the purple, and then you see if you have the white in the other colors. So there's no 3. Keep white 3 or gray 3. There's a 4. There's 5s, and then there's a lot of 6s. Okay. Oh, 2. Okay, so in terms of successes, what we have here is 1, 2. This counts as just a single success. So 3, nothing here. This is 4. This is 5. These 2 white count as 6, and then the yellow is a double success with this matching with this one. So that's 7, 8, and then this one's ignored. I again understand that the math that I just went through might not make a lot of sense. I'm not going to try to explain it, but I'm 90% sure how what I just did there was correct. So I only got 8 total successes, which seems a little meh, but at least the mine wasn't a dud. Okay, so it does say removing all soft cover. So that I think is just a huge benefit in itself, is that all the soft cover underneath these guys go away. Otherwise, you kind of have to deal with that as your. Otherwise, I still would have to. Those are like blocks, right? So that's gone. And then, it does say that I ignore hardcover. So hardcover, otherwise, I think blocks a couple. I don't know how many hits. I forget off the top of my head how many they block, but I ignore them. So it says to divide up the hits evenly. So it's 8 total, and unfortunately, so 8 total, but there's 9, 12 health, or 3 guys. So evenly would be 2, 2, and 3, 3, and 2. So yeah, I'll do this. Obviously, I'll take out this guy, and then knock this guy down 2, so he's still 4. And that eliminates 2 VC. And I believe you put them off to the side when VC are destroyed. I'm quickly trying to find out that part. Yeah, this tracks the number of enemies eliminated in combat. Tracking this is important, as the more enemies that are eliminated, the less cohesive and effective they are in combat, and the more likely they are to retreat. This is represented by an additional initiative cost the enemy must pay for their activations as the number of enemy eliminated increases. So that's kind of a cool. I really like that mechanic in this game too. So along this track, you have spots for eliminated VC, and of course I'm missing. Oh, they're right here. So these 2 VC go there, and then there's thresholds. So as more VC eliminated, then they have to use more stamina when they activate. And basically, it's this tug of war. But when it comes to activations, if this marker's on the green side, it means it's the Marines activation, and once it shifts back to the red side, it's the VC's activation. And when you take an action, it's X amount of stamina points. So then you just move it, the number of stamina points accordingly. So what this means is that the VC now will have to add 1 stamina point or initiative point. I'm not exactly sure what the right term is there. Whenever they're taking an action, and then eventually it can get up to 2, and then all the way up to +3. Like it said in the rule book, it just simulates that they're losing cohesion, and which makes sense. Like, you're losing your men, you're going to not be as focused. Your morale might start to decrease, and that's just going to impact how effective you are in the combat. Well, with all of that, we're of course getting close to the actual New Year's Eve mark here in Central Time. I'm realizing that I definitely need to do a read through again on how combat actually works in more detail before I actually try to resolve the rest of this situation. So I think what's best is for me to stop this live playthrough here, and I definitely plan to maybe even tomorrow start this up again and continue from where I'm at right now. I don't. I'd like to think I'm in a decent situation. We eliminated 2 of the VC right away with that mine, and I think we will get to activate first. So definitely the potential to eliminate maybe 1 or 2 more VC before they get to go. But hopefully, I mean, I definitely think I showed like 50% of the gameplay. There's definitely more combat stuff that we will need to explore, but in terms of this part of the game and this track and how mission readings work, you got to experience all of that, and hopefully you can understand why this game to me is extremely novel and is a really cool experience. I don't really have a good comparison game to this. I for some reason think of Robinson Crusoe in a sense. Part of the DNA of this game, I mean, it almost reminds me of Robinson Crusoe, a little bit of Ambush, the old Avalon war game, or Victory Games war game, because you're doing paragraph checks depending where you are in this bigger map, but it ultimately exists on its own. Like there's not really a game that it's extremely similar to, and why of course I back this game. So first of all, Happy New Year to everyone watching, to those that already are in the new year, and to those that are waiting, like myself. And if you like what you saw, oops, wrong camera for this. If you're liking what you're watching, please check out our link tree and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We really appreciate your support and watching our content. And with that said, Happy New Year to you and your family. I really hope all of you have a fantastic, I hope you had a great 2024. I hope you have an even better 2025. And yeah, stay tuned for the next part of the crash scenario mission. And will the Marines find that helicopter? What's going to be the outcome of this battle? Where will it lead us? There's a lot of questions at hand. And anyway, until next time, thanks again for watching. I'm Nick with